Chiefs Kingdom, buckle up, because the NFL world just got hit with a massive twist. Last night, shocking news broke across the league involving Maxx Crosby. A blockbuster trade between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens completely collapsed after Crosby reportedly failed his physical during the trade process. And for the last 24 hours, this story has absolutely dominated NFL headlines. But here's the thing, this situation doesn't just affect those two teams. It could have major implications for the Kansas City Chiefs and the entire league. Today we're breaking down two huge angles to this story. First, could Maxx Crosby somehow become a Kansas City Chief? I know it sounds crazy, but the idea is already being discussed around the NFL. And second, there's a major update that surfaced this morning that could change how the entire league handles off-season trades moving forward. So let's break down everything you need to know. Alright Chiefs Kingdom, let's rewind to how this all started. Late last night, the Raiders released a statement confirming that the trade sending Crosby to Baltimore had officially fallen apart. The Ravens backed out after Crosby failed his physical at their facility. Shortly after that, NFL insider Diana Russini reported the reason behind the decision. Crosby was undergoing medical testing in Baltimore and the team ultimately decided not to move forward after reviewing the results. So just like that, the deal was dead. Crosby returned to the Raiders, and immediately the conversation across the NFL shifted to one big question. If the Ravens aren't trading for him, who will? Because let's be honest, it still feels very unlikely Crosby stays in Las Vegas long term. The Raiders have already committed massive money to other players this offseason, reportedly handing out nearly $300 million in new contracts over the next few years. So now the big question becomes, do the Raiders try to move Crosby again in another trade? Many around the league believe that's still very possible. ESPN analyst Louis Riddick even threw out a list of potential teams that could be monitoring the situation, including the Philadelphia Eagles, Buffalo Bills, and Chicago Bears. And then at the end of that list, he added one more team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Since that moment, the conversation among Chiefs fans has exploded. People are asking whether Kansas City could, or should, try to make a move for Crosby. So today we're going to answer that question. But before we talk about whether a trade is realistic, we first need to understand why the Ravens backed out in the first place. According to Russini, several people around the NFL believe Baltimore knew about Crosby's knee situation before the trade and may have simply gotten cold feet. Remember, Crosby suffered a significant knee injury last season that eventually ended his year. He underwent surgery to repair a serious meniscus tear, something the Raiders never tried to hide. In fact, Crosby himself posted photos from the hospital while recovering. So the injury wasn't a secret. That's why many insiders believe the Ravens might have simply reconsidered the deal after taking a deeper look at the long-term risk. And Crosby's own doctor, Dr. Neil Elatrake, released a statement addressing the situation. According to his medical team, Crosby is actually progressing extremely well in rehab and is on schedule to return to elite form this season. They also suggested the timing of the physical may have created the appearance of risk that should fade as recovery continues. In other words, while the Ravens failed him medically, other teams around the league might not reach the same conclusion. So despite the failed trade, Crosby is still viewed as a high-level player who should return to full strength. And that means teams will absolutely continue monitoring this situation. Now let's talk about the price. According to Russini's sources within the Raiders organization, Las Vegas does not believe the failed physical should lower Crosby's value. Their current asking price? Still 2 first-round picks. Even with the medical concerns. Personally, I think there's a good chance that price eventually drops, but that's where negotiations would start. Now let's get to the question Chiefs fans really want answered. Could Kansas City realistically trade for Maxx Crosby? I'm going to be honest with you guys. The chances are basically zero. Not because the Chiefs wouldn't love to add him, any team would. Crosby is one of the best pass rushers in football. But think about it from the Raiders' perspective. Why would the Raiders trade a franchise legend to their biggest division rival? Sending Crosby to Kansas City would mean facing him twice every single year. For Raiders leadership,